Hey there. Welcome to the supercut edition of Conquering Louisville, my 7-part Project Zomboid series, where I spawned deep into the heart of Louisville 10 years after the start of the apocalypse. The city is overrun with unimpeded natural growth and dominated by wandering hordes. My plan? Fight to ascend Maslow's hierarchy of needs and reach self-actualization by killing 10,000 zombies in 100 days and reclaim Louisville for the living. This project is the culmination of 255 gigabytes worth of gameplay that first started almost a year ago and shows my progression not only as a survivor but as a video editor as well. If you'd rather watch the series in its original episodic format, I'll leave a link to the dedicated playlist in the description, as well as at the top of the screen. Anyways, I've yapped long enough. Sit back, grab some cereal, crack open a bottle of bourbon, and enjoy the video. Upon spawning in, there was one very important thing that needed to be done. That's more like it. Before I dive into full-on commentary mode, let me just give you guys a quick introduction to some notable settings I have on the server, as well as a handful of mods that I think are important to point out, and my character build. I set zombie respawns to 1,440 hours, which equals about 2 months of game time. I also turned on expanded helicopter events just to make the game feel more alive and eventful, as well as the mod Become Desensitized, which, if you did not know, allows you to become desensitized over a certain amount of time or amount of zombies that you kill. Outside of those mods, the rest I use are quality of life in nature, and the list is pretty long, so I'll link them in the description below if you're interested. As far as my character build, I went with the repairman occupation, which I really believe is one of the most underrated melee-focused occupations, simply for that +2 maintenance boost that you start with. You also get a starting +1 in short blunt and carpentry as the icing on top. These are my negative traits, and these are my positive traits. For better or for worse, day one was really uneventful. I spawned into a wallet factory, and all of the wallets were empty, not a single dollar bill in sight. I did find a pack of cancer sticks, and a small kitchen on the second floor with a few boxes of cereal. These will be useful when I need to start stress eating and get my calories up. I opened up the map and quickly realized that I just spawned in arguably one of the best spots I could have. Plenty of prime real estate to go and loot. Upon stepping outside for the first time, I got smacked in the face by that cold wind chill. With my nips as hard as diamonds, I knew that my biggest priority would be finding some layers. I began rummaging through these abandoned apartments, but quickly realized that they were all just completely devoid of loot. Maybe I would have better luck elsewhere. I noticed a rabid fan coming towards me, probably begging for my autograph, so I had to deal with him first. There were more apartments down the street, and upon entering the kitchen, I had already knew that I hit the jackpot. At the rate that I was bulking, I knew that I would not be underweight for very long. I also found a few bottles of bourbon, and my very first weapon. A bread knife ain't much, but it's better than my bare hands. I went outside and did a little bit of what the cool kids call breaking and entering the apartment next door. Shanked the homeowner from behind and put her out of her misery. Found some painkillers in the bathroom.
Pills here!
And a pretty good jump scare upstairs. I seriously needed to find something better than this flimsy bread knife. I opened up this little closet and found a sweet pair of boots and my very first bag. No more lugging around all my loot in a garbage bag. I opened up the map just to make a few marks and keep track of where I've been. Even though I have the map all known on start, Louisville is massive and I did not want to risk getting lost. I still needed a reliable weapon and some layers if I had any chance of surviving outside. So I went to the next house and... yeah, boy! We'd be cracking skulls in no time. I stole the denim jacket that this zombie was wearing, even though it was in terrible condition. Despite playing this game for over a couple hundred hours, this was my first playthrough where I'm actually experiencing winter. I didn't want to mess around with the cold. Noticing I still had a couple hours of daylight left, I decided to explore a bit outside and noticed this conspicuously good conditioned van just waiting for me outside. The Zomboid gods clearly sent me a blessing because the key was in the freaking glove box. And the battery still had a little bit of juice. All I needed was to find some gas. The trunk also has some goodies, like a pair of leather gloves, metal pipe, and a nice hammer. I spotted some other cars on the other side of this fence, so I ate some raw oatmeal like I was a horse, and hopped the fence to continue my quest for gas. The gas had to wait, because I needed to deal with some of these groupies first. That last zombie I killed looked like ex-military or something because he had some good loot on him. A large backpack, a bullet bandolier, I don't think I've ever used one of those, but it's cool to have, and an extra pair of leather gloves. I also finally found a digital watch so I can actually see the temperature. Yeah, it's cold, but not brutal cold, at least not yet. I decided to loot this gas station, thinking that I would find some empty gas cans that would help me on my quest, but instead I just found a couple stragglers.
How you doing?
I did find a crowbar in the back room, which is useful to have on me, but no gas cans. Of course, like the total degenerate I am, I looted the shelves of all of their cancer sticks and grabbed a handful of junk food on my way out. It was getting late, and during winter, days are shorter and darker, so after realizing that this truck had no gas in it, I decided it was time to head back to safer territory towards the wallet factory. As I was getting ready to walk in, I heard some rustling around and knew that I had some unwanted guests in my temporary home, so after struggling very hard to get both of these double doors closed for some reason, I went ahead and took care of these squatters.
Oh shit, not good.
After narrowly avoiding an untimely death, I looted a nice police bulletproof vest off of one of the zombies and headed upstairs to finish the night with some reading. After a good night's sleep, I emerged from the wallet factory with a clear objective. We needed to find some gas. I looped around a nearby building, chugged an entire bottle of orange soda, and engaged in a minor street fight. Then I found exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah, buddy!
I quickly scanned the area for any more zomboids walking around, then siphoned some gas using my empty soda bottle. I just needed enough to bring the van right back here. Then I proceeded with the very tedious task of transferring all of the gas that was in this car into my new van. After countless trips back and forth, I got in the van, put the key in the ignition, and I was off. I drove maybe 100 feet before spotting another truck that I really wanted to take home with me.
Another one.
If you didn't know this, if you use a tire pump on any car and inflate all of the tires to full, it actually makes towing the vehicles much easier. It took me a long time to figure this out. This little pit stop was worth it, not just for the spare car, but I like to have a collection of different vehicles right outside my base so that training mechanics is a breeze. With all that being said, we kissed the wallet factory goodbye and was on our merry way to the base. There were multiple groups of zombies in the streets as I was approaching the base, so I knew that as soon as I got out of this van, I needed to be ready for a fight. There's not much else that makes you crave a cigarette more than kiting a horde of zombies.
Tobacco.
After I finished cracking skulls, I noticed it was starting to get late and I was exhausted. So I head inside and make sure that my new base is secure for the night.
Why don't you just fucking die already?
After murdering and disposing the corpses of the homeowners of this house, I feel like the base is finally secure, which means that I can finally start unloading my bag and making this place feel like home. I placed a couple of cooking pots outside to start collecting rainwater, and began organizing all of my food items in the kitchen. Then I went outside to go check out the garage and was reminded why I chose this base location in the first place. This garage has chances of spawning a lot of useful items like metalworking supplies, tools, and some spare car parts to work on mechanics. Also, did I mention that this house has river access too? I mean, in terms of base locations in Louisville, this place really has almost everything you could ever hope for. I think the one downside is that it's on the outskirts of town, so all of the POIs in central Louisville are sort of far away, but now that I have a car, that won't be an issue. After checking out the garage, I went upstairs and found 3 gun cases, one of which had a shotgun that I will be using in the future, a fanny pack, and a crowbar in perfect condition. Then we finished off the night with more reading. Some would say that this is the most reading Fred has done probably ever. All it took was a zombie apocalypse. We kept things fairly low-key on day 3. The weather outside was frightful, so we passed the time in the morning by finishing off that Mechanics Volume 1 we started from the night before. A few hours had passed and I was ready to emerge from the house, only to deal with a handful of stragglers that had come in through the front gate. I figured if I'm gonna keep all these corpses in my driveway, I might as well steal all their belongings, some of which being some helpful goodies. I then continued with a little bit more organizing around the base, took the goodies out of the trunk of the van, and found a place to put my spare electronics. Don't ask me why I chose this cabinet in particular. I don't know, maybe I thought this back room was needing of some love. With Mechanics Volume 1 fully read, I can start training mechanics. This next part is really weird. As I was training mechanics, a zombie literally walked up right behind me and didn't do anything. We've only been alive for 3 days, and that's maybe the second time I've cheated death. Despite the near death in-game and in real life, almost having a heart attack, I still thought it was a good idea to keep training mechanics while my base was clearly unsecure, and this happened again.
Hello there.
Surely, if the game didn't pause there, that would have been it for me. Getting those 2 close calls in the span of like 5 minutes turned me into a man possessed, and I was on a mission to clear out the entire surrounding area of zombies. The street ahead of me was clear and daylight was running out, so I figured I would end off the day, instead of going on a killing spree, by just looting my neighbor's house. We found some useful skill books and a magazine, a peepin' Tom in the backyard, and a kitchen with plenty of good food to bring back to the base. The garage had some good stuff waiting for me too, such as a couple boxes of nails and a welder's mask.
Nice.
And as a little cherry on top, I found a skill magazine in a trash can in the upstairs bathroom. Also grabbed some soap, because Lord knows I will need it. Not bad at all from just looting one house. Darkness was fast approaching, so I decided to end it there and head back to base. It was time to enjoy the spoils of my first looting run and catch some Z's for the night. We kicked off day 4 with a breakfast for champions, a cigarette straight to the dome, and an entire box of dry cereal. Delicious and nutritious. I had a very clear objective for the day: find a grocery store and loot enough food so that I could survive for, at the very least, a couple weeks. However, I didn't drive very far before spotting this dripped out survivor zombie. Spotting a zombie like this so close to the base was a sign from the Zomboid gods, and I knew I had to take advantage. The loot that we found on this guy made the killing spree well worth it. I mean, the madman was carrying a block of cheese and a whole stick of butter. The gas mask is kinda cool too. Our next stop was the grocery store, and we still had plenty of daylight left. One uneventful drive later, I pull up to the grocery store, and there's a decent horde waiting for me. I wanted to stand my ground and paint this parking lot red with all of the zombie blood, but they were replacing themselves faster than I could kill them, so I ended up needing to pull a Houdini maneuver and lead them around this back building here so that I could loot the grocery store safely. After looting enough food to probably fill the entire trunk of the van with food, I was confronted with some angry zombies from earlier. I don't think they liked it very much that I just disappeared on them like that. And we leveled up in maintenance. After loading up the van, I needed to start hoarding garbage bags for rain collectors back home and found a couple skill magazines in these dumpsters. At this point, I had noticed it was starting to get late and I had a choice to make. Either make the drive home in the dark or crash here in one of these nearby apartment buildings. I decided to play it safe. I found Carpentry 1 on a bookshelf nearby, and an AK-47 in the closet. God bless America. Finally, we finished off this night, just like every night prior, with a little bit of reading. This really has become a nighttime ritual for Fred. It helps keep him calm during this chaotic apocalypse. Fred was so engulfed in his pursuit of knowledge that he didn't even hear a zombie banging on the bedroom door. At least she had the courtesy of knocking first. And just like that, after a very successful day, Fred could snuggle up in relative safety inside of a neighbor's bed and get ready for the next day. The incessant sounds of bangings coming from all around us made us wake up a bit early the next morning, which was good because we were feeling a bit excited to bring our loot stockpile back to base. We hopped back in our trusty van and embarked on the return journey back to base. Not too far from the grocery store, we spotted a survivor house. I don't even think I noticed it in real time, which is why I just drove right past it. As we returned back to the base, it was business as usual. We spent most of the day just unloading everything out of the van and into the kitchen and other parts of the house. These shelves in the garage have become my weapons storage room. I dealt with a few zomboids in my driveway who probably wandered in here just trying to sell me something. No, I'm not interested in my car's extended warranty. Watching the kitchen cabinets become chock full of food made Fred a happy man. Now that we've checked off shelter and food off of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Fred was ready to start satisfying his higher level needs. Unfortunately, we're all alone in this world, so belonging and community were just not an option for Fred. Maybe, just maybe, finding a generator could be that spark in Fred's life. Unfortunately, because of inclement weather, that goal will have to wait. Until next time. I woke up early with a newfound vigor, ready to seize the day ahead of me. Today would be the day where I take my first step towards the goal of becoming self-sufficient and find a generator. However, a generator is useless without the proper know-how, so I scouted out a large library in the dead center of Louisville, which I felt gave me the best chance of success. The plan was simple: park the van in front of the library, grab the magazine, and bounce without wasting too much time. Quick and easy, 15-minute adventure. Or so I thought. Upon arriving at the library, I was caught off guard by the sheer amount of shamblers in the streets. There was no way I could fight them all, so I had to think on my feet. After quickly parking and exiting the van, I began shouting into the void in the hopes of attracting all the nearby zombies. I thought that if I could lure them all out of the library, I could then lead them down the street and eventually lose them. I even fired off a warning shot in the hopes that every zombie was following me. So I hoarded up what was probably over 100 zombies, and they followed me away from the library, like sheep being led by their shepherd. After rounding the back corner of the library, the coast appeared clear. I thought I would be free to run in, grab the magazine, and get out, just as my plan intended. I had an opening to hop into the library for the very first time. At this point, my heart was racing, and I only had time to loot just a few books before all hell started breaking loose. The zombies down the street that I led away from before must have heard the sound of my heart beating because they began flooding through the windows and overwhelming me. I tried to fight them off while remaining inside the library, but eventually I realized my efforts were futile. Exhausted and becoming increasingly panicked, I left the library and attempted to lead them away yet again, choosing this time not to shout or fire any warning shots. I needed to bring this horde through a different way than I did before. After completing the loop back to the library, I took care of a few stragglers that were waiting for me, and realizing that a handful of zombies had broken off from the horde and followed me in, I decided to stand my ground. But then, this happened. I suffered a laceration on my forearm, which required my immediate attention, and feeling naked and afraid from losing my hat during that scuffle, I couldn't risk being in this library much longer, so I engaged in probably the most intense game of cat and mouse I've ever experienced in Project Zomboid so far, desperately searching each bookshelf looking for that fateful generator magazine. Eventually, I found it. But I wasn't fast enough in grabbing it, and nearly avoided another confrontation with the zombie. So I played another round of Ring Around the Rosie, hoping I could create enough space between me and the hungry horde of zombies just wanting to take another bite out of me. And there it is, we've secured the bag. So we exit the library from the same window of which we came, frantically run towards the van, and we live to fight another day. I risked life and limb for this magazine, and reading it for the first time truly felt like an accomplishment. We could cross step 1 off of our list. However, this was merely just a baby step. We still needed to find an actual generator, but I knew just where to look. Following the craziness of the previous day, this day was all about rest and recovery. Most of the day was spent just tending to my wounds, reading a couple skill books, and dealing with a handful of zombies that visited my base.
Know your fucking place, trash.
Maybe if I keep the curtains closed, the zombies won't believe that anybody's home. The following day was spent doing about as much the same as we did before. Overnight, our injuries had only gotten worse.
Infected.
We had to put off the looting run yet another day. After catching a zombie trespassing in my backyard, I was determined to not let this happen again. So I spent the rest of the day training carpentry in order to get the required level to build walls and finish walling off my backyard. After getting my carpentry level up, I did my best Donald Trump impression by promising to build the wall and then never finishing it.
We're gonna build the wall. We have no choice.
Instead of going out in a snowstorm and while I was still injured, I decided to end the day with a little bit of reading. Day 9 would end up arguably Day 9 would end up arguably being one of the most important days of this playthrough. If you've ever gone to Louisville in this game, then you're well aware of this military checkpoint. Not only are there loads of guns and ammo in this place, but there's also a guaranteed generator spawn right here, as well as a handful of others up and down this long street where there's abandoned campsites. This scene tells a story of desperation in an event where all hope has been lost. But for us, it tells a story of hope and opportunity to maybe, just maybe, build something out of this cold and desolate world. Once we find a generator, we can finally emerge from the darkness and start sustaining ourselves for the long term. Complement that with a stockpile of weapons and ammo, and we can beat back the hordes of the undead and make sure they never threaten us again. Zomboids were littered in the streets, turning this otherwise easy drive into something more along the lines of going through an obstacle course. We were also struggling to maintain a steady speed through the snow and the grass, making this trek much more dangerous. Eventually we made it to the long row of campsites, our first major landmark, knowing that the military checkpoint was just a few minutes away. After crashing into a cardboard box that was maybe filled with cinder blocks or something, we made it to the chain link fence that marks the entrance to the military camp. And unlike the library from days before, we were ready for a fight this time. At this point I was getting exhausted, and as much as I wanted to kill every last zombie in my sight, I knew it was more useful to me if I could just lose them somewhere in this camp. So that's exactly what I did. That little maneuver was worth it, because other than a handful of zombies, I was able to loot relatively stress-free for the rest of my time here. I spent the next 5 hours of game time looting this entire camp dry of all of its weapons and ammunition. So instead of showing you the boring process of walking from tent to tent, why not just show all of the loot that I got? Thankfully, I remembered to pick up the generator before heading back to base. And as a little cherry on top, I found this sweet green military poncho that I'm wearing now. And just like that, we were ready to make the return trip home and unpack all of our precious loot. We now have secured 2 of the 3 necessary components for using a generator. We got the magazine, and we have the actual generator. Now all that's left is to get some gas, but pretty soon the sun will be setting. And since we're still pretty far from base, we're gonna save that goal for tomorrow. We were up and out the door super early on day 10, spending this time during peak Sigma hours, gathering weapons and ammunition for the mission ahead of us. My freshly looted generator was parched for fuel, and once that thirst is quenched, my base will be a shining light among this dark and barren apocalypse. With enough weapons to single-handedly wage World War III, I leave the base and head towards the nearest gas station. If there was any chance we were going to secure this spot for the long term, then there was one way to do it. And honestly, it's the only way I know how.
Extermination.
I was very eager to test out my new boomstick that I looted from that army checkpoint in the last episode, so I rounded up all of the zombies in the nearby area and just started blasting. After committing massive zombie genocide with my shotgun, there were still a handful left just trickling in, but they were easy to take care of with melee. With the gas station now secure, we were able to freely fuel up to our heart's desire. And I spotted this lonely trailer as I was siphoning gas. By this point, I couldn't decide what sound I enjoyed listening to more: the squishing of freshly slain zombies, or the soothing hum of a running generator. I finished fueling up the van and ran inside the gas station, excited to pick all of these shelves clean. Thankfully, there were a few much needed empty gas cans inside of this storage closet. Then, like the cracked out loot goblin I am, I gobbled up all of the junk food in this gas station. After this haul, Fred would be speedrunning obesity in no time. Then I took some time looting all of these corpses, mainly looking for spare electronics like digital watches and walkie-talkies, as well as some other, how do I put this? Extra pairs of underwear. Don't judge me, alright? Ever since the attack I suffered in the library during the last episode, there's been a hole in my heart the size of a red baseball cap. Until now, we are so back, baby.
It's just one of those days.
The sun was starting to set, marking the end of a very successful day. But of course, we weren't just gonna leave without bringing this beautiful trailer back home with us. As well as copping a devious lick in the form of this ice chest freezer. This definitely wasn't necessary to grab right now, considering I had no fresh food, but I wanted to start fishing soon, meaning I would need the extra space sooner or later. Day 10 sure was turning out to be quite the W. Not even 2 weeks in, and we've nearly secured all of the necessary materials to become self-sufficient. Upon arriving home, we still weren't tired, so we went ahead and unpacked the van. Got the freezer set up right here in the kitchen, connected our generator outside of the house so we don't poison ourselves with carbon monoxide, turned on the generator, and voila! We had finally brought light to the darkness. We finished off the night with a celebratory pot of chili, which would be our first warm meal ever since waking up in this nightmare. Day 11 was another early riser, but not by choice. We were rudely awakened by an active alarm clock on one of these digital watches that I had scooped up. So in a fit of sleepless rage, I decided to get my payback by dismantling all of the watches right here, right now. Since I was there anyway, I went ahead and dismantled the rest of the electronics in this cabinet, including 25 of these walkie-talkies. And guess what? That still wasn't enough for level 1 electrical. The rest of the morning was pretty chill. We spent a couple hours reading a skill book until the sun came up. And since we had found a hand axe last night, we could finally start chopping down some trees and finish walling off our backyard. I was very satisfied by my deforestation efforts, until I was greeted by a zombie Lorax. He even brought one of his boys with him as payback for my efforts in chopping down his homeland. With the current threat neutralized, I got to work in sawing some of these logs for planks, and scored a carpentry level in the process. Then I spent the rest of the afternoon doing more chopping and more sawing of logs, rinsing and repeating until I could finally finish this damn wall. The wall definitely wasn't pretty, but it'll get the job done for the time being. Then I spent the next 8 hours of game time trying to spearfish, and honestly, I don't know why I thought this would be a good idea, or how I thought I would even catch anything, considering I was level 0 fishing. Yeah, what a massive waste of time.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
I was so determined to actually catch something that I thought maybe reading the Fishing Volume 1 would help my chances. I think you all know how this is going to go. On the morning of day 12, I was visited by one of those pesky Jehovah's Witnesses.
Hello. Do you have a moment to talk about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ?
No.
Then I went right back to spearfishing for the rest of the day, clearly not learning my lesson from yesterday. I was up and out bright and early yet again, back to the fishing grind. But this time, I thought I had a plan to maybe have different results. I thought that I wasn't catching anything because I was too close to shore, so maybe if I built out a dock far out enough into the river, I would start catching some fish. Or at least pairs of shoes or something. You're probably all just dying to know if I actually caught something today. And honestly, I thought today would be the day. You know, third time is the charm, right? Or so they say. So, without further ado, here is the grand reveal.
Six and a half hours later.
Another day, another empty bag of fish. Honestly, I had no idea if I was doing something wrong or if fishing at this low of a level is just not worth it. So after 3 days of utter disappointment, I needed a change of pace. Our change of pace would come in the form of a much needed looting run. There's a group of industrial buildings just to the north of the gas station that we cleared out just a few days ago. And I had a pretty extensive shopping list. We needed some farming supplies, fishing supplies, sledgehammer. Of course, we could always use some more melee weapons. Also, some metalworking supplies would be greatly appreciated. I also tried very hard to properly back out with this trailer, but I eventually just gave up and brute forced it. One quick and uneventful drive later, and we have made it to our first warehouse, but not without dealing with some of their security detail first. We then had free reign to check out what was waiting for us inside of this warehouse.
Oh my.
The amount of items I found in this one room alone is frankly insane. Rare loot settings, by the way. We crossed off some more melee weapons from our list. However, all of the melee weapons in the world can't beat what I found on this next shelf. Yeah, our very first trolley, baby. Courtesy of the mod Zooper Carts. Now we're looting in style. We also found a car battery charger inside of this roadside duffel bag. A very, very useful item when most of the car batteries you find out in the wild are dead. And a freaking antique oven. This is the first one I've ever found after hundreds of hours in this game. I would take it if I needed it, but our base has a fireplace, so I'll just mark it on the map for later. I left the warehouse with a trolley full of goods and feeling like I just had exclusive access to a Costco during Black Friday. However, it wasn't all peaches and cream because I had to defend my trolley from some jealous shoppers. With this haul, we were ready for some serious base building projects in the near future. We still had plenty of storage space left in the trailer and the trunk of the van, so we drove a little bit further up the street to go check out a couple more warehouses before heading home. There was a group of zombies blocking the street in the direction I wanted to go, so I needed to take a detour. For a split second there, I considered just ramming through them, but I can't afford another rate hike on my car insurance policy. We were nearing our destination, but I suffer from a strong case of shiny object syndrome and decided to check out this beautiful looking truck instead. I quickly jump out of the van and run over to go check for keys in the glove box. No luck this time. No key in the ignition either. At this point, any sane person would have been perfectly okay with taking the van and just forgetting about this truck, but I am not a sane person. I decided to walk around and see if I could find a key lying around on the floor somewhere, all while dodging an increasingly dangerous zombie horde gathering behind me. Was this truck more valuable than Fred's life? Probably not, but damn it, when I put my mind to something, I finish it, and spotted the key just a few steps away. Now I was faced with a binary choice: fight or flight. I chose to fight. After that little parking lot brawl, I began wondering to myself if this truck was really worth it. Well, one look at the condition told me it was well worth it. I mean, look at that.
Wow.
So I fueled up the truck with the intention of towing the van and the trailer in a sort of conga line, but I was ambushed by another group of migrating zomboids. At first I thought it would be just a handful, but the numbers kept growing and I ended up fighting for the next 3 hours of game time. With the zomboids taken care of and the sun quickly setting, I thought it was time to finally get this conga line moving and head back home. it'll become very obvious that when it comes to backing up a car with anything attached to it, I have no idea what I'm doing. We were finally in position and so ready to get out of here, until realizing that you can only attach 2 things to a conga line. So I uninstalled the van's battery, reinstalled it inside of the truck, and officially cut ties with our van. This was an emotional moment for Fred. He had been through a lot with this van. Leaving it behind has the same feeling as breaking up with your very first girlfriend for someone better and more compatible. We had been through a lot together, but it was time to move on to bigger and better things. We started off day 15 with yet another attempt at spearfishing. At this point, I'd be ecstatic if I caught some garbage floating near the surface, considering that we've already dedicated 3 entire days to this activity. And as if we weren't already down bad enough, a wandering walker broke down our defenses just to mock us for our failures. Fred's self-confidence was in shambles, and just like our wall, needed some repairs. With that new carpentry level, we just unlocked level 2 walls that are stronger and more aesthetically pleasing. With our backyard barrier upgraded and secure, we continued spearfishing for the rest of the afternoon, not giving a single f about the nasty blizzard swirling around us. I drank some ice-cold river water to quench my thirst, and chopped down a handful of trees to make more planks. By this point, I had no more water in my house, so rain collectors were a top priority for me. I'm running the mod Snow is Water in this playthrough, which does exactly what the name suggests. Rain collectors will still collect water while it's snowing, just at 50% of the normal collection rate. There was nothing of importance that happened in these next 2 days. Other than waking up with some neck pain because I slept on the couch, I stood in the exact same spot of my tiny dock and continued spearfishing for another 2 days straight. At least I earned level 1 fishing, which gave day 17 a bittersweet ending. Day 18 started with us enjoying a peaceful morning, eating breakfast and minding our own business. A few zomboids were jealous though, and rudely invaded our privacy. Then, we set out on a much needed looting run, before becoming too stir-crazy at the base. Our destination was the Newton Freight Warehouse, suggested to me by a commenter on episode 1. We're here to see if the loot truly lives up to the hype. After dispatching the locals outside, we moved to clear the inside. At first glance, this warehouse was massive, holding at least a dozen shelves loaded with juicy loot. Words can't describe how excited I was to whip out the trolley and pick through every single shelf and crate in this beautiful place. But first, we picked up a water dispenser for a backup supply of water, and a microwave to add to our kitchen. Then went inside the main room to start having our way with all of these shelves. I noticed that each section of shelving had loot that was organized to be sent somewhere specific. This section was for gas stations. These shelves only had sporting equipment, so probably going to a school gym or any kind of sports shop. All of these shelves were full of booze, definitely being sent to the nearest college campus. I could keep going on through each section, but you all get the idea from here. This is a really cool detail that gives this specific location its own character, and also indirectly tells a story that makes this game world even more immersive. All in all, this was an amazing haul of loot from just a single day. Arguably the most important find was this fishing rod and fishing tackle, so I no longer have to deal with spear fishing like an absolute savage. Something weird happened during my drive home, and I had never experienced it before. Did you catch that? Let's roll the footage back.
What the hell?
I had no idea what just happened in that moment, so I just kept driving to the base and found out the hard way. First, I unpacked the water bottle from the dispenser, then went back outside to check literally everywhere I could in the truck. I was really confused why I didn't have the water dispenser, not having any idea that it was flung out of the trailer on the drive home. I spent so much time unpacking and organizing everything that I didn't end up going to sleep until 4:40 a.m. At least now I have some friends to keep me company in this dark and lonely world. I had a clear objective for day 19, find a spare generator and some propane tanks, because I wanted to start metalworking soon. Thankfully, the abandoned campsites on the way to the military checkpoint have exactly what we're looking for. I must have caught this horde in the middle of a migration, because this route has become much more treacherous than I remember. But not too long after that, we made it to the campsites. Parked the truck and began doing a little zomboid clearing of the area. Our trusty spear paid the ultimate sacrifice at the end of that brawl, but we did end up scoring one propane tank, one generator, and an extra van that was just stunning. I'd say that's a fair trade. Unfortunately, the van's pristine condition didn't last long because there were some protesters that decided to block the streets. After a long drive home, I dropped the van off in my driveway before making my way to the gas station to drop off our spare generator. Hooked up the generator next to the gas pumps, fueled up some spare gas cans, and decided to end the day right when it was starting to get dark. The plan for today was fairly simple. Our trucks were pretty banged up from splattering zomboids,
Splatter spree.
and I was itching to craft a scrap weapon arsenal for the very first time. I scouted these two large apartment buildings just down the road from our base. They were multiple stories high and had dozens of apartments for me to disassemble and power level metalworking fairly quickly. There was just one problem. This area would likely be swarming with the undead, meaning I would need to clear every last zomboid to ensure my safety. Were it so easy. I started honking the horn as I approached the apartment complex, ensuring that every zomboid inside these apartments would come outside and form a manageable horde for me to start gunning down. In the moment, I figured the best course of action would be to run in a large circle around the building, fire into the horde, and repeat until the complex was clear of the undead. However, sometimes things don't quite go exactly according to plan. As soon as I made this loop, I realized just how many zombies there were in this area, but I was unfazed and continued fighting throughout the entire day. My training route was blocked at this point, forcing me to go towards the street and continue firing from there, but this only seemed to pull more zombies in from the surrounding area. I quickly looked at my ammo count and realized that I was in way over my head. Call it being unprepared or just straight up hubris. Either way, I definitely was not equipped to deal with a horde like this. Clearing the undead at this point simply was not an option. Now I needed to survive long enough to make a break for the truck and escape. I attempted to draw in a majority of the horde into this forest so I could then loop around and try to lose them. At first, it appeared that my escape plan was working because I was just confronted with a few smaller pockets of zomboids as I continued running towards the truck. The coast was clear and I was free to make my escape, but it was at this point I made a boneheaded decision that would inevitably come back to haunt me. With a fresh M14 and 6 full mags of ammunition, I thought I would be able to take on the rest of the horde, and continued putting my life on the line. It finally became clear to me that no matter how many shots I fired into the horde tonight, there was no way I was taking out all of them. I simply did not have enough ammunition. And because of all the extra gunfire, the amount of zombies we were dealing with at this point was well into the hundreds. The main road and the entire apartment complex was completely overrun at this point, so I had to make one last final dash to the truck, bobbing and weaving through countless undead to try and make an opening big enough so that I could escape. There it is. We have our opening. It's now or never. I refuse to die in this apartment complex. Or maybe this is it for us. Maybe the plan all along was for the god of death to claim another soul. What do we say to the god of death? Not today. Fred was never a religious man, but This was clearly an act of divine providence, and just might make a believer of him yet. There was clearly something, or someone, watching over us today. But even though we cheated death tonight, we still had a massive problem on our hands. A massive wandering horde of the undead that would eventually approach our base. We were done for the night, but tomorrow, our only option left is the nuclear option. A thick fog had rolled in overnight, severely limiting our field of view, but we had a job to do, and nothing would get in the way of that. Our best chance at burning this undead horde to a crisp would be to lure them all out to the main road and keep them away from the apartments as much as possible. Preventing the apartments from catching fire would be a huge W and would ensure that these past 2 days would not be in vain. So I made a break for it through the trees, making sure to shout so that the zombies kept their attention on me. It was imperative that we kept them within a single large group and not have them break off too much. After spotting the first apartment building, I quickly changed direction and prepared to throw the first Molotov. Now, we just had to bait the rest of the horde into the forest fire that we just started. Next, we needed to get in position so we could deploy our second Molotov. The road to the left was already cut off, and if I went right, we would lead the horde straight to the base. So now, we had to keep this next horde within this big parking lot and try our best not to set one of these apartments on fire. Our throw was on target. Now, we needed to corral as many Zeds as possible into this fiery ball of death. I ran towards the road and baited other wandering groups into the fireball behind me, continuing this burning Zed festival in the parking lot, rinsing and repeating to be sure that I was pulling as many Zomboids away from the road as possible. Ash piles on the ground were growing larger, and the air reeked of the stench of burnt corpses. That's a price I'm willing to pay, if it means clearing every last Zomboid in this place. A few hours and hundreds of torched Zomboids later, my parking lot festival predictably turned into a forest fire that even Smokey the Bear would be proud of. But we've committed enough arson for one day. It was time to pack it up and assess the damage tomorrow. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't feeling relieved to be back home safe and sound. These past 2 days of the Louisville experience have been my craziest time playing Project Zomboid so far. I ended the day by enjoying a freshly packed stogie and a much-deserved night of sleep. I had no real objective for today, other than feeling like I wanted to take it easy. As I was chomping on some dry breakfast cereal, I decided that my day would be best spent visiting the local Blockbuster to score some valuable VHS tapes. There was just one thing we needed to do first. It felt surreal driving through this parking lot again. What was once an apartment complex full of Louisville residents is now an open-air crematorium for the undead, and where Fred nearly met the god of death. I assessed the damage, and at first glance, it seemed like the apartments were spared of any fire damage. I scavenged this wrecked ambulance and found some useful medical supplies. No beta blockers though. Then I hopped back in the truck so I could quickly drive back to base, attach the trailer, and begin my VHS side quest. As I made this turn, I got extremely lucky and spotted this absolute beauty.
You're beautiful, it's true.
But the nearby Zeds would not give up the sledgehammer without a fight. More and more shamblers wanted in on this scuffle, so I decided my best course of action was to lure them away from the truck so I could scoop up the sledge and leave them in the dust.
I'm in danger.
There was another large group of zomboids loitering near the blockbuster, but instead of using violence to clear the area, I activated my patented Houdini maneuver. First, I needed to use my voice to bait them all out from their hidey holes. Then, once these idiots are all baited, I lead them through these woods and into a nearby neighborhood, where I dash through a vacant house and hop the tall fence back into the blockbuster complex. Works 100% of the time, every time. Despite all my shouting, there were still a few zomboids left hanging around. Now, we're free to check out some at-home entertainment. The best part about the zombie apocalypse is that I don't think anyone will care if we forget to return our movie rentals. I think these will keep us occupied for a good while. Then, we plotted our next destination, a local Gigamart that was on our way home. We were sure to find plenty of useful items here. First, we just needed to make sure that the area was secure. I took a quick breather from smashing skulls to check out this beautiful blacked out van. So beautiful, in fact, that I marked it on the map to be picked up at a later date. These shamblers didn't really put up much of a fight outside. Let's go inside and see what we're dealing with. After nearly shitting my pants, I'll move more cautiously inside the Gigamart. After clearing the storage rooms, we checked out the main entrance. It was relatively peaceful until a group of rabid zomboids came piling in through a window, probably excited by all of these low prices. Now we were truly free to peruse the aisles peacefully. This should be enough extra food to last us through the rest of winter. That was enough looting for one day. We didn't want to overstay our welcome, so we started driving home. It was a relaxing drive through Louisville, until it happened again. Only this time, I actually noticed what happened. But there were a lot of zomboids wandering around, so I needed to pull an advanced Houdini maneuver to try and recover my precious belongings. I say advanced, but it's really just the same tried and true method of screaming into the void, luring the horde of idiots around a building, and sneaking away from their field of view. Easy peasy. The coast is clear. That's why violence isn't always the answer. Let's go home. Now that we've secured a sledgehammer, it feels like the rest of Louisville is up for grabs, so we put off our metalworking goal in favor of looting the huge army surplus store at the far end of the city. During the drive, we ran into our missing water dispenser.
Hello, baby. Did you miss me?
We arrived at the army surplus not too long after and made short work of any nearby zomboids. I went inside to take a quick look around for any more lurking about, but thankfully there were just a few more left outside. Now that we had the store to ourselves, I was very eager to go on a little shopping spree. I spotted this van in near perfect condition and decided it would be best to use it as an upgraded trailer since it has way more storage space. I probably should have waited for these idiots to break the door down themselves, but I was getting impatient. Now we have access to the firearm motherlode, and this place did not disappoint. Scoring this Spaz 12 is for sure the highlight of today. We scavenged enough loot to fill almost 2 trucks worth, and all of this walking back and forth made us sleepy, so it was time to pack it up and head home. We'll have to pick up the trailer another time. Fred's beard has grown substantially during these past 3 weeks, so he decided to clean it up and look less like a homeless man. Gotta look sharp for any women left in the city, if there's even anybody else left to begin with. Since we looted 2 trucks worth of weapons, today was almost entirely spent on unloading and organizing. Pretty soon, we would have to expand this storage room because we were very close to running out of shelf space. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Other than the overgrowth of weeds and vines, our kitchen was really starting to come together. And now that we have a working radio, we'll know exactly when the weather is right for farming. I remembered to train mechanics before going to sleep, and reached a very important level 2. If you thought I was obsessed with collecting cars without hot wiring, you haven't seen anything yet. We woke up early the next morning so we could drive back to the army surplus and pick up our trailer that was left behind. We had just killed a prepper zombie that was carrying some interesting loot on him. There's nothing like scoring some sweet new drip from a freshly slain corpse. I arrived home and just barely avoided scratching my new ride while parking in the driveway. Then, I went inside to grab a quick bite to eat. Even though we now have all of these amenities, Fred still enjoys eating dry mac and cheese. It keeps him humble. After breakfast, we spent a good chunk of time just preparing our arsenal of weapons for the next day. Tomorrow, we would drive back to the nearby apartments, clear out any shamblers still left hanging around, and power level our metalworking skill. We finished the day by trying out our brand new fishing rod, and the most unbelievable thing happened. We actually caught something. This catch belongs in a trophy case. Still riding the high from yesterday's big catch, we went right back for more fishing in the morning and finally caught something edible.
Oh, I'm so hungry. Finally, I get to eat.
It ain't much, but it's an honest catch. Then we gathered our gear for the day ahead of us. We pulled up to the first apartment building and were met by a decent chunk of Zomboids. At first, I wanted to take them out with melee. Eventually, I chose to go loud instead. Now that the apartment complex is a ghost town, we packed the metalworking gear into our inventory and immediately got to work disassembling every piece of metal we could possibly find. After nearly 4 hours of game time and 2 metalworking levels later, we were satisfied enough to head home and pick this back up in the morning. But, of course, we won't start metalworking again until we soak up the knowledge found in Metalworking Volume 2. We ended up using the entire day to read, so instead of heading back to the apartments, we chose to stay home and do some fishing. As we were getting ready for bed, I overheard a peculiar broadcast on the radio. Perhaps there's a Good Samaritan watching over us. At first glance, day 28 was just like any other day. We started our morning routine of disappointing ourselves with fishing until we were interrupted by a roaring jet engine flying overhead. It's not often we cut fishing short in favor of something else, but this we had to go check out. Thankfully, we didn't need to drive very far because whoever dropped this package basically did so right on my doorstep. Of course, all of that noise did bring some unwanted attention, but they were easy to take care of. Inside of this care package were 13 supply boxes, which were hopefully full of valuable items for our survival. Whoever dropped this off had done us a huge favor that someday I hope to repay. I somehow managed to pack all of these boxes in the trunk of the van and bring them back home in one trip. Since I wasn't using the home's built-in garage for anything else, I decided to store all of the care packages along the wall here and just open them whenever I see fit. Of course, I had to open at least one right now. I was simply too curious not to. Turns out, I got enough toilet paper to wipe my ass for at least the next year. I owe my life to you, good Samaritans. I wasn't feeling like any other adventures, so I spent the remaining daylight hours with more fishing. I noticed puddles of water beginning to form because of all the rain, so I thought tonight would be as good of a time as any to get a little cabbage farm going. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll be picking any fresh cabbages anytime soon, but we gotta start somewhere. In Project Zomboid, crops take longer to grow in the wintertime when compared to summer or springtime, so technically we're doing this the opposite way as it should be. Oh well. Not being content with dry cereal or mac and cheese anymore, I decided to go full Gordon Ramsay and whip up 4 pots of stew before bed. Going through an assortment of canned goods and other dry goods I had stocked up in the kitchen, Fred was enjoying the smell of freshly cooked stew permeating throughout the kitchen. This base truly was starting to feel like a home. Thanks to our farming efforts from last night, we were gifted with a few worms to use as fishing bait. Perhaps this is the missing key for success. It's not the biggest fish around, but damn does it still feel good. 2 days have gone by since our first day in the apartments, and now that we've got a big brain from reading and soaking up all that metalworking knowledge, it's time to finish what we started. Before heading inside, we did have to shank a handful of zombies first. We got straight to work for the entire day, moving from room to room and disassembling everything in our way, only taking the occasional break for looting whatever caught my eye. We continued this throughout the day and into the late hours of the night. After scoring Metalworking 3 and this beautiful poster, it was time for us to go home. Immediately upon waking up, I had already grabbed a spear and started running towards the river. The hours between 6 to 9 a.m. is peak fishing time, and I wanted to milk every minute of it. Another failed attempt at spearfishing, but we weren't gonna let this keep us down. After all, we've survived our first month in Project Zomboid. I think it's fair to say that Fred earned this chocolate bar. With high spirits and a full belly, we were ready to take on the rest of the day. We still had unfinished business at the apartment complex, but before going straight to work, I ascended to a nearby rooftop and grabbed an extra propane tank. Imagine just hanging out with the boys, cooking some steaks up here with this gorgeous view. Our little propane detour was finished. Let's head back to the job site. The job site is secure. Now, let's take full advantage of the time we have left and get to work. Level 4 took a bit longer than I expected, but still, a job well done. After everything that has happened during this last month, I honestly feel very lucky to be alive. and positioned to survive into the foreseeable future. Even though we've already gone through a lot together, the city of Louisville still has so much left for us to explore and eventually to conquer. We woke up in a dark, yet eerily familiar place. Fred could see himself here, living comfortably, had the world not been scourged by this ruthless plague. But it can be dangerous to reminisce too much about the past. Let's go get some fresh air. We don't have the time or luxury to be sulking around anyway. The city needs us strong, now more than ever before. This van looks like it would be a nice addition to our collection. Ah, poor guy must have broken his legs. Let's put him out of his misery. Looks like we've got some company. That was easy enough. Let's get this van hitched up. I've collected enough vehicles at this point that the front of my base resembles a disorganized used car lot. Eventually, I want to move all of these into the garage, but for now, I just need to make some room. All of this ruckus pulled in a handful of curious zombies into the driveway. This place was a total mess, so we reserved the rest of our day for unloading, organizing, and cleaning up. After storing our supplies in the exterior garage, we shifted focus towards some interior design. Nature had claimed enough of our house that it prevented me from seeing my new wall art, motivating me to do some housekeeping. The kitchen is a good start. Now we can finish the job. A clean home is a clean mind. I polished off a long day's work with a pot of leftover stew, making sure to place the empty pot back outside, and started reading Carpentry Volume 3 before bed. After the previous night's reading, I was determined to finish the carpentry textbook. A few hours of intense focus helped us make good progress, but instead of reading all the way through, I continued our pursuit of knowledge by binge-watching episodes of Woodcraft, which helped us achieve level 6 carpentry incredibly fast. My hunger for knowledge still wasn't satiated, so I cracked open an intermediate mechanics textbook and only put it down once my eyes felt too heavy to keep open. Our hunger for knowledge was so intense yesterday that we didn't eat anything, so I made sure to fuel up first thing this morning. Then we finished that same mechanics textbook after breakfast. and followed up with another session of VHS and chill. After all that learning, we yearned for the great outdoors. Large trees have claimed my backyard from years of unimpeded growth, so my goal for today was to clear most of them out and restore my waterfront view.
We're gonna have to go right to ludicrous speed.
Now that's what I call the tornado method for clearing trees off your property. I ripped off the clothes from a handful of corpses that were lying around my property so I could make sheet ropes and organize all of the logs that I spent all afternoon chopping down. I started a small collection along the wall here, until running out of sheet ropes shortly after, so I shifted focus towards crafting 3 new rain collectors, one here to act as a secondary source of filtered water, and 2 more near my crops. After that was finished, I went inside for a minute to eat dinner and rest, before going back outside to dig more furrows for future crops. Outdoor lighting would definitely go a long way out here. Fred's beard was so thick it started bursting through his ski mask, so grooming that sucker was the first to-do of the day. That's more like it. We weren't satisfied with the worms we collected, so we went back outside to dig more furrows. Let's see if those extra worms will help us out.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Clearly, I didn't collect enough worms. Let's go dig up some more.
Round 2. Fight.
Look at this dude.
I suppose beggars can't be choosers, but at least now we've got a pretty big farm to work with. This propane gas furnace looked interesting, so I gathered the necessary materials and constructed it next to my garage.
I provide the people of this community with propane and propane accessories.
Apparently you can use scrap metal on the furnace as a base material to craft other pieces of metal. Neat. We had a restless night and were awake incredibly early because of it. Instead of popping a sleeping pill and going back to sleep, I took advantage of a peaceful morning and made progress on some more housework. My weapons storage room had a capacity crisis, so I used some metal I salvaged from hollowing out the apartments to make an upgrade. While my new containers are lacking in aesthetics, they definitely make up for it in their utility.
Holy, look at all this.
Storage. My secondary storage closet was also in dire need of an upgrade. One last crate for extra food storage. My van has taken a beating, so I made repairs to the hood and to the trunk. After a busy morning, I went to the kitchen for a quick lunch. It's been 4 days since we last left the base, and after checking Fred's zombie kill count, I had an idea of how to spend the rest of the day. Our destination is Louisville State Library, being just a short drive away. Although we already own a decent collection of books, there's enough missing to where I can no longer gain XP boosts on key skills. I don't want to visit the downtown public library again, for obvious reasons. However, a lot has changed since my last library visit, and today, I woke up and chose violence.
Here's Johnny!
Well, that was fun. After dusting myself off, I equipped my secondary looting bag and entered the abandoned library. Before I could start scavenging for books, I had to act like the school bully and teach these dorks a lesson. Now we can freely check out as many books as we need.
Knowledge.
We grabbed enough books that we probably won't ever need to come back here, but I'll mark it on the map just in case I forgot something. The drive back home was a dark and treacherous one, as I avoided numerous hordes in the street. Thankfully, we still made it home in one piece. We began the next day by diving deep into a good book, Carpentry Volume 4. I stepped outside for a moment to rest my eyes and considered going out for an adventure, but one look at the weather made me reconsider. Instead, I got comfortable and devoted myself to reading the entire carpentry textbook cover to cover. Once finished, I went out back to my dock and, to the surprise of nobody, I caught nothing. Before bed, I crafted 2 fishing nets to attach on the sides of my dock. I have a good feeling these are what I've been missing from my fishing all along. We slept in and enjoyed a hearty breakfast that would hold us over for the rest of the day. Today's agenda had an important task and we needed to fuel up. Wandering hordes have made the roads parallel to my base increasingly dangerous. My plan? Arm up and use my van to lure as many zombies as I can away from the base and towards the gas station. Let's get to work. After finishing today's zombie cleanup job, I topped off the van and gathered ripped sheets and thread for tailoring before driving back home. I checked my fishing nets first thing in the morning and gathered some little bait fish. Maybe these will work better as bait than worms. Then it was back to more work around the base. I thought of an idea to close off my driveway with tall metal fences, but I can't get started on that without level 5 metalworking. I remember spotting a huge car wreck at this intersection that I can dismantle for metalworking materials and XP. That adventure will have to wait until we finish some things here at home. First, I built out the wooden portion of my future front gate. After that, I overheard a favorable weather report on the radio, prompting me to plant potatoes and strawberries in anticipation for rainfall. Finally, our day concluded by getting a head start on Metalwork Volume 3. I began the next morning by stuffing my face with candy like a teenager whose parents left home alone. Then, I finished reading that metalworking textbook, taking full advantage of our sugar high. Following that up with an entire afternoon's worth of spearfishing. With the requisite knowledge and a full day ahead of us, we're ready to tackle our next big objective: clear that huge car wreck. We're armed to the teeth, laser focused, and eager to send every zombie in the area back to hell. I sure worked up quite the appetite from all of this zombie killing. Let's go visit a nearby gas station and grab a snack. After all that carnage in the car wreck, I'd be surprised if we need to fight any more zombies. Well, there goes having a peaceful lunch. Okay, now we can grab some food and get out of here. Hey Fred, what are you doing, man? That's not food.
Yeah, boy.
We still have some daylight left, so why not dismantle a couple cars before heading back home? As the sun began to set, we packed up the rest of the salvaged metal before driving back to base for the night. We collected a good chunk of metal from just a few scrapped cars, which should hold us over for a little while. I dedicated the next few days towards more base building and essential prep work.
Water would be nice.
It hasn't rained in a while, so I watered my crops first thing in the morning to make sure they don't get too thirsty. Then, I cracked open some of my canned food and meal prepped 4 pots of stew for me to eat throughout the days ahead.
Nom nom nom.
Yummy!
After finishing up in the kitchen, I studied Mechanics Volume 3 for a handful of hours before concluding the day by spearfishing into the night. The next morning was more of the same, except we traded out the spear for a fishing rod, which not only helped us catch some junk, but also another fishing level. I took a small break from fishing to build a metal workbench in the garage, only to go back and end the day right where it began. Gaining that second fishing level must have really made the difference, because this morning I caught the final boss of fish.
Damn, boy, he's thick! Boy, that's a thick-ass boy!
My celebration was short-lived because I was ambushed shortly after.
No.
That jump scare was the only motivation I needed to finally make some improvements on this dock. First, I stored my thick pike in my chest freezer before repairing my broken wall. Then, I extended my dock further out into the river and expanded the surface another tile wide. As icing on the cake, I added an outdoor storage crate here for all my fishing supplies. I went to the garage and opened a couple supply boxes. You could say that Christmas came early this year. After a few days at home, I was eager for something different, so I set my sights towards finishing the job back at the car wreck. I packed my gear into the van, brought along a spare propane tank, and planned to dedicate my entire day to finishing my prior goal of level 5 metalworking. We did fine work of clearing out the surrounding zombies, which gave us the space to freely dismantle as many cars as my propane quantity would allow, and only being interrupted by a couple wanderers. I had used up all the propane around mid-afternoon, signaling that it was time to return home for more. With limited daylight at our disposal and being so close to leveling up, I chose to tear apart my neighbor's exterior fence in favor of trekking back to the car wreck. Now let's grab what we need and work on finishing our own exterior fence. All that's left are the finishing touches, but since I don't have nearly enough door handles and hinges required to build a large door, I'll plan to collect those first thing tomorrow. After a comfortable night's sleep and with the sun shining bright on a beautiful morning, I drove a short distance to my next door neighbor's home. Upon my arrival, I looted the kitchen and ended the poor bastard hiding in the closet before getting straight to work scavenging for door parts. I didn't leave a single door left standing. Now let's collect all the knobs and hinges we left behind and head back home. Upon my arrival, I caught the attention from some of the local ghouls who were not happy with my desire to fortify my home. Little did I know that more intruders were vandalizing my property while I was away, seemingly out for revenge. Since my homeowner's insurance policy doesn't agree that damage from zombies is an act of God, I'm personally responsible for these repairs. After all that, I was so ready to put the finishing touches on my exterior wall, until I encountered a slight problem. My incompetence has no limits. Dismantling these fresh metal fences was painful, but it had to be done. And to add insult to injury, I was assaulted by the neighborhood HOA under the cover of moonlight. A man can't even build a damn fence on his own property without being harassed. Home improvement isn't my strong suit, but I'm just glad to have completed my first project. We've come a long way since arriving here just a short month ago. Our once abandoned, dilapidated base is now a comfortable compound worth fighting and surviving for. In the previous episode, we paid a visit to the Louisville State College Library and stocked up on essential knowledge. We grabbed enough books that we probably won't ever need to come back here, but I'll mark it on the map just in case I forgot something. Well, it turns out I did forget something that's important enough to embrace a cold, dreary morning and return to familiar territory. The undead horde concealed itself within a dense fog, but I should have no problem evening the odds with my locked and loaded M14. Let's get to work. By now, you might be asking yourself, what exactly did I forget here that justified burning through all that ammunition?
You serious?
Nothing in this world is gonna stop Fred from completing his fisherman arc. I made sure to pick through the freshly slain corpses for any useful goodies before returning home for the day. Also, I spotted this huge trailer in the parking lot.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
But I decided to hop back in the van and return home, making a mental note to fetch that trailer when I need it. Following the previous day's massacre at the library, it was time to put our freshly acquired fishing knowledge to the test.
I'm gonna come.
Then, I pulled some weeds out of my garden, making sure it's prepped for an upcoming building project. I was up and out the door, feeling good and ready to seize the day ahead of me. That is, until I caught these two ghouls vandalizing my front gate. I quickly murdered some of their friends before continuing on my day. I refused to let this nuisance kill the vibe. Today's agenda involves picking up that big, beautiful trailer so I can scour the shelves at the local Gigamart and bring home 2 extra chest freezers. After some rearrangement, I powered up my brand new freezers before settling down for the night. I dedicated this next week towards crossing off a handful of items that I've been procrastinating for a while. Honestly, this video has taken way longer than I expected. So, grab my hand while we speedrun through this together. Crossing the final task off of my to-do list would prove to be more complicated than I initially expected. You see, way back in episode 3, I found a car battery charger that requires a generator to operate. Now, I could just use the generator I already have at my house, but I want to keep my fresh cabbages and fish preserved as long as possible. So, on day 53, I'm driving back towards the military blockade to pick up another generator. After successfully picking up the generator, I came across this large supply truck that I just could not pass up. Do I already have more vehicles than I know what to do with? Yeah, but the storage potential of this truck is perfectly suited for my loot goblin tendencies. And just like that, my goal for the day was already complete. Or so I thought. Even though my old van took a beating, the drive home was relatively calm. But as soon as I made it around the bend, I confronted a sizable horde blocking the road ahead. At first, there was a fleeting thought that I could continue pushing forward, but that hope quickly vanished as my truck grinded to a halt. So I slammed into reverse to avoid being surrounded and ditched the truck. Thankfully, I keep 2 sidearms holstered for a situation just like this.
It's high noon. Drop!
As the dust begins to settle and the snow is soaking in fresh crimson, I can return home safe and sound. Before turning in for the night, I made preparations for the arduous and tedious task of organizing all the vehicles I have collected up to this point. Charging that spare battery overnight made the cleanup process much more seamless. In hindsight, I probably could have just charged my truck battery up to 100% by leaving the engine running all night and swapped that one battery in and out of every other vehicle, but I don't know. To me, using the battery charger just makes the most sense. Either way, these next 4 days are a bit of a blur, as nothing really exciting happens. However, my life did flash before my eyes while I was using a zombie to help me replace my front gate, because for some unknown reason, the game was not letting me disassemble this gate myself. After luring my demolition expert into position, I just had to sit and wait for him to do his job. By this point, I was frustrated that the zombie only partially destroyed the gate, and due to my frustrations, I wasn't acting as carefully as I should have.
Surprise, motherfucker!
Thankfully, my military poncho was there to save me from myself. Now that my front entrance is repaired, I spent nearly 4 entire days just chilling in my garage and grinding my mechanics level up to level 5. I can't imagine how long this grind would have been if I wasn't using the auto mechanics mod. If you hate training mechanics anywhere as much as I do, this mod is non-negotiable. Upon finishing up with mechanics, I shared the same feelings of extreme boredom that Fred was feeling. All of the items on my to-do list are now complete, and I've prepared my base in such a way that I could reasonably survive here for months without even needing to leave my property. But honestly, what's the fun in that? I felt a deep desire to expand my influence across Louisville and butcher as many wretched walkers as I possibly could. So I devised a plan to explore the rest of my little corner of the city before finally confronting one of Project Zomboid's most notorious zombie strongholds. After surveying the racetrack in my truck, I parked near what was probably where all the horse jockeys would hang out before they raced. There weren't many zombies hanging around here, so I took the opportunity to borrow these blue storage lockers for my own personal use. After that, I took some time to explore the rest of the venue and laid to rest all of the remaining spectators still waiting for the next race. Killing zombies is cool and all, but the highlight of today's expedition is seeing this beautiful horse statue.
Look at my horse is amazing.
Of course, setting up our blue lockers was pretty cool too. We finally made a use for this spare room, which I've pretty much neglected ever since we secured this base. All in all, today was essentially a warm-up for what I had planned to come next. Before exploring the industrial district, I decided to embark on a side quest. The local ghouls didn't put up much of a fight as I cleared the area, which allowed me to scavenge these shops with ease. I didn't find anything too valuable inside the shops, but you already know that I simply cannot leave this spiffo trailer behind. By the way, if anyone from Spiffos just so happens to be watching this video, please, just sponsor me already. Anyway, after dropping off the billboard on wheels, I continued on towards the industrial district. The way I approached this first location is pretty much the same way I approached the entire district. I would first clear the area of any shamblers. After that, I would move in and search for any valuable loot before marking the location on my map and moving on to the next one. Two months of living in the apocalypse has basically turned my life into a cycle of robotic survival where each day blends into the next. Setting small goals like this keeps the mind fresh and prevents stagnation. Of course, the downside of these goals is the increased risk that comes with exploring territory controlled by the undead. A wise man once said, "The greater the risk, the greater the reward." My big reward of the day was finding this group of storage units. Before I could go looting, I had to pay the price of admission. This was my second time flirting with death within the same week, and both times I was left completely unscathed. Man, the Zomboid gods really want me to make it past 100 days. Despite the close call, I kept exploring more storage units late into the night, even grabbing my flashlight so I could move deeper into the complex. Thankfully, there weren't many hanging around inside, so after some more looting, I decided to get some rest and continue in the morning. Feeling recharged from a full night's rest, I didn't skip a beat while continuing today's agenda. I was determined to bust open every storage unit, so I started from the very back of the complex and began sledging each door one by one, only taking breaks to look for anything that was worth looting. Honestly, most of the loot here was kinda mid, but this pair of dumbbells was easily the highlight of my day. I was physically excited at the thought of pumping out bicep curls in my soon-to-be garage gym.
Greatest feeling you can get in a gym, or the most satisfying feeling you can get in the gym, is the pump. It feels fantastic. It's as satisfying to me as coming is, you know, as having sex with a woman and coming.
The inner machinations of Fred's mind are an enigma. With 2 fresh dumbbells and a brand new bench press, I was content with moving on from the storage units to finish exploring the rest of the district. There are still a few buildings I haven't marked on the map, but by this point, I was content with moving on and marking the industrial district as complete. I think I'm finally ready to confront the first demi-boss of my region of the city.
Get on with it.
Yes, get on with it!
Alright, no more procrastinating. It's time to conquer the Louisville hospital. Before today, I'd only been to the Louisville hospital once, and this was with a friend in a private multiplayer server. When we showed up there, the place was practically a ghost town. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but in a multiplayer server, there is actually a hard limit to how many zombies can exist within a single map cell, meaning that any large hordes you encounter will most likely just disappear. So when we pulled up to the hospital and only killed maybe 100 zombies total, I just assumed that experience was normal, leading me to believe that Fred could clear the hospital using only a fire axe and sidearm. Imagine my shock as I made my grand entrance and was immediately reminded of why, in Project Zomboid, failing to prepare will prepare you to fail. As soon as I found myself at this dead end, I was confronted by the reality of my situation. I've gone and riled up close to probably 1,000 zombies, with hundreds more still hiding deep within the hospital. And of course, I was not packing enough heat to murder them all today. It's honestly a running theme of the channel for me to show up unprepared to a massive fight. Regardless, with pockets of Zeds grouped up around my truck, I could not easily hop in and drive to safety. So instead, I chose to continue fighting throughout the rest of the day. It might seem like the Horde has bested me as I drive away with my tail tucked between my legs. This is merely a tactical retreat. I simply did not bring the right tools for the job. The ghouls put up a hell of a fight today, but make no mistake, when I return tomorrow, it will be scorched earth. When I said it would be scorched earth, I really meant it in the most literal sense. There was an attempt to spare the hospital from any fire damage because I actually wanted to explore the buildings, but once the Molotov is thrown, there really isn't much you can do to stop the spread. I did end up poking my head inside for a brief moment, but decided it wasn't worth potentially getting trapped in here. Conquering the Louisville hospital felt like a major milestone for Fred and boosted my confidence as a survivor. This new confidence inspired me towards my ultimate goal for this series, reach 10,000 kills in 100 days. And to accomplish this, I have an idea of exactly where I will need to go next. If I'm going to achieve this goal, then I've got some serious work to do. We're 63 days into the apocalypse and my zombie kill count is only pushing 3,500. If we included kills from fire, we would probably be closer to 5,000. But since we don't have a concrete method of tracking fire kills, we have to count these kills using only melee weapons and firearms. And after going on a little rampage at the hospital, my immediate priority was to replenish my ammo reserves. I've already picked through the army surplus store and the military checkpoint south of Louisville, which means I'll need to venture out further away from home and hit a very promising location, a hunting supply store on the opposite end of the city. This will probably be a multi-day excursion, so I spent the rest of day 63 tending to some work around the base. I harvested my fresh broccoli and potatoes, made some much needed repairs to the truck, and disassembled just enough electronics to reach level 2 and read the subsequent electrical textbook before calling it a day. I wasted no time the next morning, leaving my warm bed before the break of dawn so I could pack some food and hit the road. After driving for some time, I ended up making a wrong turn, navigating through a desolate neighborhood where frozen Zeds were roaming the streets. But what started as a mistake actually ended up in my favor as I stumbled across 2 barricaded survivor homes. The first home had already been picked clean, but the second home contained a huge stash of high-powered weapons and ammunition. However, this was merely an appetizer for what was waiting for us at the hunting supply store. There was a surprising lack of zombies at our destination, so after easily dealing with my enemies, we had free reign to scavenge as much firepower as we could possibly fit into the truck. As I finished packing up all the loot, I realized darkness was fast approaching, so I decided to clear out a nearby fire station and hole up for the rest of the night. I didn't allow myself to get too comfortable out here in unfamiliar territory, as I immediately got back out on the road hours before sunrise. Thankfully, it wasn't too dark outside for me to notice a peculiar shambler in my peripheral vision. Turns out, this poor bastard opted to try his luck on the move instead of forging a permanent home in this nightmarish wasteland. And honestly, I can't blame him. I just wish I could thank him for delivering these useful upgrades to me. Before driving straight home, there was still some unfinished business I needed to take care of at the hospital. Now that the dust has settled, I actually wanted to see if it was safe enough to explore the area, but an untimely airplane flying overhead immediately woke up the horde and sent them my way. After digging through rotting corpses for hours looking for digital watches, I'm perfectly content with marking this area as complete. Besides, I have bigger fish to fry. But before we continue, subscribe to Since my ammo reserves are now fully replenished, I'm eager to start planning my next move towards the goal of 10,000 kills. Within downtown Louisville, there are plenty of massive buildings which are likely housing some sizable hordes, but there is a specific location that warrants my attention: the Central Louisville Police Station, nestled deep within the city. Now, I could just go in guns blazing, but you know, I kind of enjoy being alive. So I'm approaching this with a level of strategy. I'm thinking that if I can create a diversion with my truck by honking the horn just outside the police station, I'll pull most of the zombies out of the nearby buildings and into the street, where I'll then slowly lead them away from the area. After that, I'll establish a satellite base just a few blocks away from the police station, so I can methodically clear the remaining hordes without drawing too much attention. But to pull off a strategy like this, I'll need some time to prepare, so I used the remaining hours of my day to reload all my magazines, set aside some canned food for the satellite base, and made sure to get a full night's rest, because tomorrow we're putting this plan into action. Upon embarking on my mission, feelings of doubt began to set in. What if the diversion doesn't work? What will I do if I get surrounded? As we neared the police station and weaved through the claustrophobic streets, these valid concerns were hard to ignore, yet I trusted my gut and pushed forward. My gut instinct prevailed, and rounding the corner towards the main entrance was my cue to create the diversion. Now, with frenzied hordes on my tail, I set the truck's cruise control to keep them entertained until I was ready to lose them. It was during this time I realized that my truck is not suited for navigating these clustered downtown streets. I needed something more nimble. That's when I spotted the perfect candidate for the job, what appeared to be a Ranger sedan in mint condition. I wanted to fight for it now, but my exhaustion was beginning to set in, weakening my attacks and making the situation increasingly dangerous. I needed to mark this location on my map and return in the morning. Thankfully, there weren't nearly as many zombies wandering around when we came back, making this an easy grab and go. After hitching up, I stopped by my secure gas station to fuel up my new set of wheels. Our diversion tactic is now complete, meaning it's time to prepare for our move to the satellite base. However, I chose not to move out there today because of the thick fog that rolled in and because I needed some time to recharge the battery in the Ranger sedan. This gave me a chance to reload the magazines for my trusty AK-47 and to meal prep a fresh pot of fish and vegetable stew that I'll bring with me on the road tomorrow. The harsh weather was an ominous sign, but I chose to ignore it. Our first order of business was to make sure this satellite base is actually safe enough for me to sleep here, so I went house to house, clearing each room and looting extra supplies. Unlike our main base where we can feel nice and cozy behind tall walls and fences, we need to deal with the ever-present threat of wandering hordes. As it turns out, I've brought just the right tools for the job. After nearly 48 hours of constant conflict, I eventually whittled down the hordes of ghouls drifting around the satellite base. Fatigue was beginning to creep in, so instead of rolling the dice on spending another night out here, I drove back to home base to rest and recharge. I could feel deep in my gut that it was only a matter of time until the hordes I distracted a few days prior would return in droves, so I needed to prepare for some long nights likely to follow.
In the mood for hot coffee? When you are, nothing else will satisfy. Coffee has a flavor, an aroma, a deep down satisfying goodness all its own. And our coffee has something extra, the care with which we brew and serve it. You'll enjoy the show more while you're enjoying steaming hot coffee. Come and get yours now.
Before jumping right back into the fray, I use this day for something that I've been putting off for quite a while. One slip-up could abruptly end it all, but adding protective layers to my clothes will act as an insurance policy, if or when that inevitable slip-up happens. I needed a stockpile of thread and ripped sheets to train up my poultry tailoring skill, which I could easily harvest from the piles of bodies in the streets. Can't let a good massacre go to waste. Huffing the fumes off rotting corpses isn't great for your health, so I gave my lungs a break and turned in for the night. We'll need a full 8 hours of sleep for what's likely to come next. Today, we have to continue the push towards the police station as our window of opportunity is closing fast. If we don't take out the remaining stragglers around the police station before the main herd returns, we risk being overwhelmed and going right back to square one. I'll use the sound of my car as bait to lead the dormant zombies out of their nest, where I can use the open space to channel my inner Jason Voorhees and slice and dice with my machete. The time to act is now. Let's get to work. Slashing through hordes meant that we could finally poke our heads into the police station, if only for a moment. Rest easy, my sweet prince. It's getting dark soon, so if all goes according to plan, tomorrow should be the day we move inside the police station and finish the job. I decided to spend the rest of the night in this apartment building just up the block, since it seemed safe enough. At this point in the playthrough, there really isn't much I need in terms of survival gear, but I was still curious about what I could find in these storage lockers. Can never have too many propane tanks, I suppose. Next, I needed to sweep each floor and deal with the residents still lurking about. After everything we've been through, dying in this apartment building would be a pretty anticlimactic end to the series. To say I was clenched throughout these series of events would be an understatement. As day 72 began, I was feeling on top of the world. By all accounts, I've seen near flawless execution of my plan to clear the police station, and today would be the day I finally see it through. Wait, what's that noise? No, it can't be. I must be hallucinating. No. Why are they flying here? I don't want their help. I don't need their help. I quickly got in the car to scout the area surrounding the police station, where my fears were ultimately validated. all of the zombies in the vicinity were following the path of the stranger's airplane and its roaring sound. All of my days spent planning, strategizing, organizing around the police station were wasted. Fuck it, I'm done being stealthy. It's time to take the fight to them. I got extremely lucky that the hordes couldn't reach me behind this fenced-off yard, giving me a perfect position to mow them down. I'm running low on spare magazines, and the rest of my ammo is still in the car. My best chance to make it out of here is to try and clear one side of the fence and make a run for it. I know I said that I would stay away from using Molotovs, but you know what? I just don't care anymore. I'm ready to burn this motherfucker to the ground.
Hasta la vista, baby.
I left the car running, so it really doesn't matter how much noise I make, because zombies will still continue to swarm around it. In my moment of reprieve, I plan to create an opening to jump back in the car and continue my path of destruction. But first, I have to rid myself of this awful looking beard and mog these zombies with my chiseled jawline. I have no idea what just happened. Where were we again? Oh, right. Montage. That's enough destruction for one day. Let's rendezvous back at home base. I fully intend on finishing what I started, and packing some extra firepower will do just that. There's likely to be an armory somewhere within the police station, so I expect every round of ammunition I use to cull the undead will be paid back in kind. Not even a full night's sleep could slow down my bloodlust, as I wasted no time jumping right back into the action. If I leave the burning hordes unattended for too long, there's a chance that the fire will reach the armory and scorch all of that precious loot. I'm prepared to ensure that does not happen. The last few days of Total War had created an opening on the far side of the police station, which I capitalized on as soon as I could. Once inside, I began searching for loot without much resistance. Finding junk food in the apocalypse is more valuable than gold, but I did not go through all this trouble for just a snack. I knew the armory had to be on the second floor, but finding a flight of stairs can be easier said than done inside a place like this. In Project Zomboid, fighting zombies inside a building is very much like fighting a cockroach infestation, because when you see one, that usually means there's more lurking in the shadows. I was so close to pushing upstairs until, shit, the fire is still spreading. I have to try and deal with them now, before it's too late. Ah, there's too many. I have to find another way around. When you play with fire, sometimes you'll get burned. Thankfully, the injury I sustained was only to my non-dominant hand, meaning I can still fight, but I need to dull the pain to remain effective. At this point, I considered ending the mission here, but in a split-second decision, I turned the car back around and parked in front of the station. A little burn wound on my left hand won't stop me now. I rushed through the blazing building and up the stairs in the hopes of reaching the armory before the flames. But as I ran across the second floor, the brutal realization finally sank in. I was too late. Despite already suffering a burn, I disregarded my personal safety to scavenge anything untouched by the fire. After nearly an entire week of action, I think it's safe to say that I've conquered this police station. I would have preferred less fire and brimstone, but hey, a win is a win. I'm just glad that I can finally put this place in my rearview mirror and move on to my next objective. I took a moment to reflect on our progress so far and mapped out exactly how I'll spend the next 25 days. Conquering the downtown police station helped us inch closer to our goal of 10,000 kills, but we still have more work to do. Right now, we're a little over halfway to reaching that magic number, and I know exactly where to go next. The Grand Ohio Mall, or what I like to call it, the final boss of Louisville. I'm confident that there's more than enough zombies in the mall to push us past the finish line, but before we go on the attack, I really wanted to scratch something else off of my Project Zomboid bucket list. Just south of the mall, there's a large junkyard surrounded by impenetrable fences on all sides. In this vast open space, I'm going to build my own home away from home, something I've never done before in my hundreds of hours playing Zomboid. This will surely be a massive project, so I'll need at least an entire day to prepare for the move. The burn wound on Fred's hand will likely need a few days to heal, so there's no better time to gather the essential items for our new base. And when I say essential, I mean pretty much anything and everything I think I'll need to make this happen. But first, I picked some fresh strawberries from my garden. There's no need to let these go to waste. Then I began the process of transferring items into as many bags as I could carry and loading everything into my truck. After that, I made repairs to the Ranger sedan before spending the rest of the night lounging in front of the television and enjoying some VHS tapes. We picked up right where we left off by continuing to load up the truck with enough building supplies for the job, along with a handful of guns and melee weapons. I also couldn't forget to bring food and water to sustain myself for at least the entire length of this building project. My hope is that I won't need to drive back here for the rest of the playthrough, but anything can happen. I also finally gathered enough electronics to reach that level 3 milestone, which unlocks the ability to move electric ovens. Riveting, I know. In the minuscule chance that there's someone from Indie Stone watching this video, seriously, we gotta flesh out the electrical skill. There is so much potential here, but as it is currently, it's just not worth grinding past level 3. Anyways, after 2 days of prep, we were ready to close this chapter of our story by saying goodbye to my cozy waterfront property and venture out towards the unknown far eastern edge of Louisville. It was crazy to see the difference in overgrowth that had occurred on this side of the city, untouched by any human activity for over 10 years. As I approached our destination, I could already picture its potential, but I knew that the locals would not just willingly let us gentrify their neighborhood. Once the horde was cleared, I took some time to explore my new property. I found an unopened container of margarine inside of this trailer and ate the entire thing for lunch. I also found a garage in the back corner containing some extra supplies. Since the overgrowth here is so severe, it actually provides an abundance of trees that I can chop down and harvest for planks, which will greatly reduce the amount of time it otherwise would take if I had to drive to a nearby forest instead. But before beginning my base construction, I wanted to move these abandoned vehicles across the street to make room for my truck to drive back and forth. We're going to speedrun these next 4 days because I really don't do anything else besides chop trees, build, eat, sleep, and repeat until the job is done. Basically, the best way for me to show these 4 days of progression is with, you guessed it, a montage. Initially, this was where I would build my base, but I quickly realized that from this angle, I wouldn't even be able to see the front of it. Instead, I decided to turn this construction into a garage so as to not declare it a complete waste of time. After all that effort, phase 1 of my construction project is complete. It ain't much, but it's honest work. Now, we gotta spruce this place up and bring my new home to life. But before I do that, let's return to our old base for the night. I realized that beautiful Jeep I found hidden in the trees only needs a standard car battery to be mine. And since I didn't pack a battery charger, I'll need to drive all the way back home and pull the battery out of my Ranger sedan. Now this is an upgrade. I quickly grabbed my spare generator from the truck and made a pit stop at a nearby gas station so I could fuel up my new ride. Now that's taken care of, let's drop the generator outside the house and hook it up for power before going shopping for furniture. After checking to make sure the house was clear, I started by prying off a few windows with a crowbar. Then, I went back in the kitchen to grab a handful of these wooden chairs and the king-size mattress upstairs, which proved to be a bit more tricky than I expected. Since each piece of the mattress weighs 20 kilos, I had to drop 3 pieces off at my house before returning for the final piece. At least now, I'll have a big, comfortable bed to sleep in, right? Well, assembling the mattress proved to be more difficult than taking it apart, and I spent at least 10 minutes here trying to figure out exactly what I was doing wrong. I eventually gave up and dumped all the mattress pieces outside to never be seen again. I suppose another night of sleep in the car isn't the end of the world. The following morning, I went back to the row of townhouses to resume my shopping spree. This house had another king-size bed and a bunk bed. I could have settled for the bunk bed, but honestly, I just wasn't really feeling it. The house next door had what I thought was a normal single bed, but when I tried picking it up, the game was clearly showing a large mattress, so I was duped by a weird visual bug. This house wasn't a total loss though, because I walked away with these 2 banana couches and a brand new TV. On my way back to the townhomes, I spotted something in the corner of my eye. While the Jeep scores very high in style points, the trunk space is abysmal, so this trailer is a much needed addition. I threw both of these industrial refrigerators in the trailer just to accentuate that point. Instead of returning to the townhomes, I chose to visit a fire department which was right next door. Oh, look at that, we found a bed. I also grabbed a TV stand, an oven, and a table. I mean, sure, this place isn't like staying at the Hamptons or anything, but it is just oozing with potential. And what better way to maximize this potential by caffeine maxing through tonight so I can take full advantage of every hour between now and day 100, because at this point, I could really feel the clock ticking down. My first stop would be in this wealthy neighborhood. I had a feeling there would be some cool stuff here. Despite loading my truck to the brim with building supplies, I forgot the one item needed to fully flesh out my new kitchen: a pipe wrench. I won't have running water without that wrench, so I'm taking a mini day trip to a tool store in the hopes of finding one there. My hopes were rewarded, as there was an abundance of useful items at this tool store, one of which being this trolley perfectly suited for a caffeinated loot goblin. I took a peek at these houses across the street, which all had purple carpets that I immediately began tearing up, because of course I would. When I returned and installed my new carpets, I figured my kitchen would look better with tile flooring instead. Thankfully, I didn't have to go very far to find some. Three sleepless nights later, and my new home is really starting to come alive. I burned through my entire coffee stash, and as you would expect, fatigue is starting to take a toll on me. Instead of going to sleep in the middle of the afternoon and really screwing up my sleep schedule, let's walk up the street towards the gas station and look for something to keep me going. These vitamins are just what the doctor ordered. One bottle of vitamins won't last long, so my next order of business is to go check out a grocery store and scavenge for more coffee. As I rounded this corner, I came to a sudden realization. There's a gun store right here. Of course I can make time for this. I'd just like to point out the absurdity of Fred crunching on whole coffee beans to satisfy his caffeine addiction. I mean, to be in a zombie apocalypse is down bad enough, but I don't know how down bad you'd have to be to consider this level of savagery. Anyways, after finding more coffee in the storage rooms, I drove back home to unload my trailer full of loot and put the finishing touches on my interior decorations. What began as merely 4 walls and a roof has become my humble abode, and our efficient time management has left us with exactly 2 weeks to reach our goal of 10,000 kills. There's just 2 little things I have to take care of before going on my killing spree. First, my perfectionist nature would not allow me to leave this last section of flooring unfinished, so I have to find more purple carpeting. And second, some time ago, I marked a survivor home that I discovered from an annotated map, and since it's in the area, I want to go check it out. Turns out, this place was absolutely loaded with melee weapons. With the sheer amount of houses in this area, it shouldn't take too long to find some purple carpets. There's none here or here. Let's go look somewhere else. Would you look at that? Another survivor home. Let's go check it out. I can't believe it. It's over. 86 days of survival, and it's over in an instant. I have taken countless fights like that, put myself in more dangerous situations than that. I have mastered the flow of fighting groups of zombies, yet all it takes is one lapse in focus to completely end it all. In this moment, I felt a slew of emotions, a mix of anger and despair, like I was punched straight in the gut. If I wasn't so concerned about some fucking purple carpets, maybe this would have never happened. To be totally honest, the thought of activating the cheat menu and wiping away my injuries for sure crossed my mind, but that is a slippery slope as a content creator. I mean, everybody knows that 100 days is the secret sauce for the YouTube algorithm. What am I gonna do now?
I survived 86 days in Project Zomboid.
Regardless, Fred has maybe 72 hours at most before the Nox infection fully consumes his life. I will not just sit in a corner and wallow in self-pity. I choose to die on my terms by packing as many guns as I can carry and driving straight to the mall. This is war, and honestly, these fucking zombies deserve it. Putting on the Spiffo mask turned me into a man possessed, but my spare shotgun shells were just not able to keep up with my insatiable thirst for blood. Once I ran out, I switched to the Tech 9, but my damage output was severely diminished because of my injuries. I also brought an FAL assault rifle, but I left it in the passenger seat of my car. The only way we're leaving this mall in one piece is if we break stuff. Now that I've grabbed the FAL, let's get in there and really cause some havoc. By this point, most of the horde is either burning or dead, which gave me some space to go and find that Kill Bill zombie. Finally, having a katana makes dying just a little bit easier. Since it's mostly clear, I patched up my wounds in the car and waited a few hours for sunrise before heading back inside. This is my last day on Earth, so I'm going looting one last time. I had never been inside the mall until now, so I was just enjoying walking around and seeing what I could find. When I confronted the remaining zombies, I very much wanted to cut through them with my new katana, but my degrading health was becoming too much to bear. Instead, I chose to spend my remaining hours back where it all started. I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't feeling a little emotional when I returned home. It wasn't supposed to end like this, but hey, at least I have the luxury of spending my last moments exactly how I want. I can rest easy knowing that I gave it my all up to my very last breath and left a beautiful home behind for anyone else out there who may be coming to Louisville. Yeah, this feels alright. Let's just sit here, get shit-faced drunk, watch the water a bit, and die in peace. Thank you all so much for watching. I know my editing got a bit sloppy towards the end of this video, but honestly, I had to get this series wrapped up. I probably won't make another series with more than like 2 or 3 episodes because people rightfully lose interest. But I assure you that I have some amazing ideas for my next long-form Zomboid video. You'll be seeing more of me real soon.